Hello, welcome to Studio Talks. My name's James Swift.
I'm Josh McNorton, and our guest today is
Josh Roscoe. I play drums for Elysian.
Brilliant. You okay, Josh?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. Are you all right, Josh?
I'm alright, James. How about yourself?
I'm gonna have a lot of fun this episode.
You can call me a nickname if you want. I
No,
used to
no,
go
no.
by the name James in school, so
No, I prefer just addressing everyone as Josh. Yes, I'm still a child. So, Josh, how has your 2020 been?
I think, like everyone, it's been mixed. Quite fortunate in the sense that my job's been safe and my boss has been very, very kind. So work's been actually okay. Music wise, obviously it's been a bit of a up and down struggle, but doing our best. Overall, it's been a pretty miserable year, but I would say I've definitely got more in touch with my music.
Really?
Been forced to, stay at home and you don't have much else to do really. So yeah, it's been up and down, but we're getting through it.
This is a common question I ask a lot of people who are like musicians mostly. Do you find the lockdown to have like stunted your creativity or make it grow?
I don't know. It's a difficult one. That I would say it's a mix of both. Because I play a bit of piano as well. That's kind of a second instrument. So with regards to that, in the sort of late spring when lockdown started, I kind of got myself more on the piano. So I'll say it helped with that. But I think with the drumming side of things, it's been a bit of a sort of slowed me down a little bit, really.
I imagine so, yeah.
So I think it's a case of using it to your advantage. Like Jen Colquitt, she just practices all day and writes music all day. So I think it's a case of just trying to use the time to your advantage, really. Which I can be like that, but I can also be a procrastinator. So it depends what day you catch me on, really.
I always say that. I very much agree. Where the first month maybe of lockdown, I was like incredibly creative, writing a billion songs and stuff, and then like second month, I was like, right, nothing. I'm done for the rest of lockdown.
See, for the first month, I just smashed Call of Duty Warzone endlessly, and then I got bored, and then I was like, yeah, I should probably do something creative. And then James was like, don't want to do a podcast? I was like, yeah, I probably should say yes to that.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
The thing is, and we have definitely addressed this a billion times, but I think podcast was the first thing everyone did. It was like, I'm going to start a podcast I think Ez sent a thing in the chat where it was, just because it's lockdown, please don't start a podcast.
And we started to.
Really?
What's your history with the studio?
Well, it's actually quite recent, if I'm being honest, compared to your other guests you've had on the show. I'd always known about the studio, and it was always something that I'd meant to sort of get involved with, but I just never got round to it. And then Ian from the band, who I met in 2018, we decided we really wanted to jam together because he played guitar, and we couldn't figure out where to. And then I think I sent an email to the studio, not knowing it was Louise, who I actually knew anyway. And then she mentioned about Sunday afternoon. So me and Ian started rehearsing like 3 till 5 on a Sunday, and then over time I just kind of got a bit more involved. And then me and Ian actually met Jen and James at the studio. I'd known James a while beforehand, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Really, so about 2 years I've been involved with the studio. But my dad, he played bass. He still plays bass, and he was in a band called Great and Lady Soul with Greg Oldfield.
Oh,
back
really?
in the 80s.
Wow.
So I'd kind of know. I've known Greg, all my life, and I'd kind of known Louise on and off. So it was kind of this sort of small world sort of feeling, when you sort of when I got in there and realised Louise sort of ran the place. So, and then since then, I mean, obviously, coronavirus has slowed everything down, but yeah, I think it's a great place, and I just hope that next year is a better year for the studio, and we can get Hot Rock sorted, and many other events really.
I completely agree with that. I mean, there's been a lot of events that we just haven't had this year, and it just hasn't felt like a proper year because, as you say, Hot Rocks and stuff like that words. And as you say, I mean, rehearsals, I really miss checking bands in and like checking them out and stuff, saying like, no, that's such a silly, simple task, but it's kind of like, do you need any mics and stuff like that? That's such a key part of the studio that we just haven't had for a very long time.
Absolutely, and it only feels like yesterday since everything was normal. And I remember you signing me and booking me for another day with me and Ian, and it only feels like yesterday. You think about it, and it's been a long time. I think everyone's ready to get back on it, really, aren't they? So.
Definitely.
It is mad how fast this year has flown by, though, even though we have been inside for more than 6 months now. But
absolutely.
It's funny because as you just said accidentally, it still feels like it's only been 6 months. As you say, it feels like it's been 6 months for about how many months?
yeah, I know. I mean, I think because I was on furlough from work. Sort of the end of March, beginning of April, and I still remember my boss telling me and the other staff, right, so you're on furlough from tomorrow, but don't worry, you're still getting paid. And it's kind of like all of April and all of May, and then I slowly started to come back to work in June, but that only feels like last week, and I kind of think, bloody hell, it's it's March, you know what I mean? We're talking about like 9 months almost, and it's just, I think as much as not doing anything can be slow, it can also make things go mad quick because you get out of your routine and you just fall into this strange sort of period of time where everything meshes together. It's almost like a long school holiday. In effect.
Definitely. I completely agree with that one. So, what is your history with music?
Okay, well, I mean, I could talk for about 3 hours with that question, so I'll try and keep it brief as I can. I was about 14 when my parents got me a drum kit for Christmas. I'd asked for a drum kit because I just really wanted one, and I didn't really think much more of it. I was just like, yeah, I'll get a drum kit for Christmas, it'll be a laugh. And I kind of started playing a little bit, and then I think it was about a year later, my dad, he bought my mum for her birthday a DVD, and it was a band called Rush. You've probably heard of Rush.
Yeah, but
and it was Rush live in Rio de Janeiro, and it was just a live concert, and it was Neil Peart on drums, who we sadly lost earlier this year. But I was watching Neil Peart play, and I just became absolutely mesmerized, and I was just like, right, that is what I want to do. I've got a drum kit in that room, so that was it. That kind of got me much more disciplined. So I started practicing every day, and to begin with, it was just hi-hat and snare drum. It was nothing else. I couldn't even play the bass drum, and then over time, I started to incorporate the bass drum. I'd practice along to lots of music, mostly rock at the time, but whatever I was listening to that week, I'd try and practice. And then when I was 16, I started college, and at the time, I wanted to do something more academic. I actually wanted to be a pilot. So I was doing maths and physics, but by this point I'd fallen in love with the music too much. So I decided to sort of leave college and pursue the music. So I started getting drumming lessons, proper drum lessons. And then I went to Runcorn College at the time and did music. I did a 2-year BTEC in music. I had a really great drum teacher in Warrington called Phil Clark. And we did all my drum grades, did a bit of Latin, a bit of jazz, and he taught me the important stuff with drumming. And then I finished college. This was about 2009 now, so I'm about 19. By this point, I'd been in a couple of bands, of which one of the bands was a band called Slide, and that was James Stillings, who plays in Elysian, he was a guitarist in Slide. So that's kind of where me and James have got a bit of a music history together. Then I taught drums for a year at Bankfield High School, which is now Ormston Chadwick Academy. But I taught drums there for a year on like a Friday afternoon. So I was teaching students in sort of year 7 to year 10, and I kind of tried to sort of create my own sort of drumming curriculum based on their abilities. But that was a good experience. And then I went to university after that. I enrolled in Westminster University in London. I knew I wanted to go to London because that's where, if you're going to try and make it as a musician, you know, there's no better place to be, really. So
yeah,
packed up my bags and moved to London in 2010. It was just like September. And then did my degree in music. It was actually called commercial music and performance. So it was
nice.
It was not your traditional music degree. It was much more based around live performance and honing your craft. And but the lecturers were really good because they wanted everyone to leave that course with the ability to do a lot of different things in music, not just be a really good drummer or a really good guitarist, but be a really good drummer that can also write and read music and
definitely,
you know, teach, you know, TV jingles or whatever. So I learned a hell of a lot on that course, but I think the main thing for me that I learned was confidence in terms of being a musician live and recognizing that, you know, I do have an ability to play the drums. And then after that, it was I moved back home because I kind of missed the north. I was a bit homesick. I don't get me wrong, London's a great place, but after being there for 3 years and being a northern person, I was getting a bit homesick. So I moved back, and to tell you the truth, I lost a bit of the music mojo. I kind of became a bit disillusioned because I'd just been doing it non-stop for like 4 years, every single night. As much as, you know, you try your best to get on with people in a band or a group, there's still personality clashes and stuff. And I think I definitely saw a lot of that at university. We were kind of assigned into groups a lot of the time, and there was a few big arguments on you know, certain practice days where one person wanted to do it like this, and it can be stressful. I mean, I'm quite a chill person. I get along with anyone, really. So I didn't struggle as much as other people, but I think I just got to a point where I just like needed to decompress for a bit. So I did. I had a couple of years not really doing much music. I did all sorts of different jobs, you know, and just kind of just starting to try and figure out, you know, what I was going to do with my life. I did a bit of teaching assistant work and this and that, and then it was only really 2017 when I ended up picking up the sticks again and started playing, and then I did a few gigs with a function band called the Brothers Grimm, and that was it. I was like, right, I need to get back on it now because I've still got the passion for it, and I've still got the, you know, I've still got the muscle memory, even though it's a bit rusty. It's still there. So, and then last year, me and Ian, like I said, started practicing at the studio, and then met James, met Jen, and then that was kind of when Elysian started, really, and that brings us up to today, really. So.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really the thing I really find interesting about that is often when people say that they like watch something and got inspired to start doing music, it's usually the other way around, where they watch something and then go, right, I'm going to buy an instrument or something. And I find it really interesting that you had the instrument and then got inspired. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I think it was because I'd already started drumming. So I think naturally I was paying more attention to Neil Peart on the drums, and it was kind of like I know what you're saying, but I think it was already sort of in me to focus on the drummer. And then when I saw how incredible he was and the way he was playing his kit, it just kind of spurred me on to really, really go for it. And I remember playing. I had this Ludwig kit, and it had two really cheap cymbals, and I was trying to play like the Spirit of Radio and Free Will. You know, Neil Peart's got this huge drum kit, but in my mind, I was there. You know what I mean? I was playing the tunes, and it was all about. I was just so passionate about it.
That's
And
brilliant.
then after
That's
that,
really
it was
good
like
to hear.
Led Zeppelin. I found Led Zeppelin and John Bonham, and there was always a drummer that was keeping me focused or keeping me on the drive to become a better drummer. So I think that's important, to always have inspiration, really.
Definitely. That's really good to hear about that.
What's your band history?
Okay, so like I said, the first band I was in was called Slide, and that was well, I was we were a Widnes-based band, and we met all at college in Runcorn. So it was myself on drums, like I said, James Michael on the guitar, and then we had Jack, a lad called Jack Condon, who was a singer, rhythm guitarist, and then a lad called Joel Marley who played bass. And it was a great time, and I really miss those days of Slide, because we were all indie kind of lads. We all loved indie rock music, but we had slight variations, but we all came together really well, and we were really tight as a band. So Jack wrote a lot of his own stuff. He was inspired by Oasis and Stereophonics, but we also did sort of covers. So our set was kind of mixed. We did a bit of Chili Peppers, a bit of Arctic Monkeys, and a few other bits. And we just gigged around with Miss really in Warrington, and we always kind of knew it was never going to go anywhere, but it was a good laugh, and great musicians, when we practiced together, but sometimes we just jam, and it was great. And then after that, or kind of around the same time, but slightly after, was I played drums for Michelle Hansen and Daniel Dunn, or Danny Dunn, who we met at college as well. Danny's now in China. He's doing the music. He's an incredible guitarist. But we were sort of function bands, so we did like birthday parties and events and stuff like that. But yeah, we did everything from like Christina Aguilera to Bjork to Michael Jackson, and that was nice because it was contrasting the indie music that was. Played a few gigs with the function band I mentioned before, the Brothers Grimm. My dad initially played bass for them, and then a few times when the drummer Dave Witchley couldn't play, I'd step in for him. So that was kind of like two sets of like 15 or 20 songs. So it was a steep learning curve, and I had to really knuckle down for that.
I was going to say, was there a level of maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Was there more of a level of responsibility with your dad being in the band? Does that make sense?
I think I felt a bit more pressure to be better.
That's the word I was looking for when I said.
Yeah, but I think that was pressure I put on myself. And on the flip side of it, it was kind of nice to have my dad sort of next to me on stage, because me and my dad have always sort of clicked musically. So to sort of know my dad was kind of happy with the way I was playing, which he always was, but it was kind of a bit of a moral support thing as well. Although there was one time when my dad kind of put me in a difficult position, because it was a song, and I said to my dad, I can't remember quite where it come in here. I always have a mental block, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll turn around and I'll give you a nod when it is." And but beforehand, there was this really quiet sort of vocal crescendo with all the other musicians doing like a 4-part harmony. And my dad turned around and nodded, and I came in this big drum fill, and all the singers just turned back at me and went, "It's not right there." So it was actually a few times when my dad was sort of actually holding me back there. No, but I mean, yeah, it was great to have my dad with me, and I think my dad's kind of, if it wasn't for my dad, really, I don't think I'd be where I am today, because he's sort of exposed me to so much music and so much sort of I don't know, just the way people write songs, the way people perform. My dad's kind of been the person that's led me down that path of music. So it's and he's been with me the whole way, even when I've not been in a band with him. He's always been there. Me and my dad actually we recorded an album over the past 2 years of my dad's own stuff. So so that's been great. Me and my dad have done a lot of recording together, so that's always fun as well.
That's lovely.
Yeah. To finish off your question about the bands,
Sorry.
this is what I meant when I said I can talk for hours. You see, so
Yeah.
when I was at university, as well as being put into bands by the course, the teachers and stuff, we obviously also got into bands ourselves. So I was part of a band that was it was a 4-piece band again. There was 4 of us. There was myself, a lad called Curtis, who was singer, Nathan on bass, and a lad called Dan on guitar. And we were kind of like an indie band, but it was a bit more Britpop because Curtis loved Blur. That was his if you could open the door to Curtis's brain, it'd just be Blur playing. So it was always that kind of feel to it. But we did a lot of gigging in London for about 2.5 years, and there was a point where we were gigging 2-3 nights a week every week in London. So I look back at that time, and at the time it was it can be a bit tiring, but I think I'm so glad that I actually got to experience doing that, because London is a completely different world. So that's kind of apart from, and then obviously Elysian, which we can talk about later on. But yeah, that's kind of the experience with bands.
Brilliant. That is literally
Speaking of later on. That's now.
Yeah.
In 3 hours' time.
So how is Elysian working within the lockdowns?
It's up and down again. I mean, we've managed to do a hell of a lot, I think, this year, considering the lockdown. I think we were really lucky. We had that spell in summer where things got better, and we absolutely smashed it. We just made sure that we were rehearsing as much as we could. So I think at one point we were doing like two a week, even 3 a week. I can't remember, but I think from about sort of early July, if I remember correctly, I think it was around 7th of July, we said we'll start on it again, and then right through to sort of September, October, we just knuckled down, and we just made sure we got tight. And then we had, initially we thought we had the Halton Rocks to work towards, so I think that kept us going. And even though Halton Rocks is being postponed, we had the gig at the Snake, in West Bank. So that was kind of took over a little bit as a bit of a sort of goalpost for us to get to. So I think it's been frustrating this second lockdown, because we felt like we were just about to get
getting there.
Yeah, we were kind of we were getting our momentum really, and we were starting to sort of just really feel it, and then it was almost like, right, you got to stop now. So, but we make sure we talk as often as we can. We've got a group chat on WhatsApp, and we do Zoom meetings as well, and we'll just discuss stuff or send ideas and stuff. So it's just about, even if you can't practice together, it's just about still being together with communication or whatever. So hopefully next year will be our year. But I think the fact that we managed to do a gig at all in 2020 is a good thing. So
yeah, definitely.
Overall, it's been okay, really. So yeah,
I think that's. I mean, it's been a common thing, but I think it's horrible for your band, because it literally only just started kicking off, didn't it? Just as the first lockdown was.
Absolutely. It was actually March. We had our first rehearsal. I think we did something briefly, very late Feb, early March in the studio, and then kind of mid-March we rehearsed somewhere else in Widnes, and then it was about a week or two later it was locked down. So it was like, yeah, God, really. But I think we actually, there was one point where we were all chatting every single day on WhatsApp, and when Jen gets into a music sort of flow, she was sending ideas loads, and she'll send lyrics and stuff like that. So it was nice, because it felt like even though we weren't together, the energy was still there. But yeah, March was when we started, and then March was when we got put on hold. So
yeah,
it was frustrating, but I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. Even if you can't see it at the time, I think you look back in the future and you'll realize things happen a certain way. And so I'm just kind of rolling with it. But I think the good thing is we're all on the same page. We've all got the same goals in mind. So that's kept us together, really.
How important are drums to making a band coherent? Did I say that right?
You said that brilliant, yeah.
I mean, you know, a lot of people always say the same thing. They always say the drums and the bass are the foundation of any band. But in my experience, I think the drums serve a purpose that I think a lot of drummers kind of lose sight of. I think a lot of drummers they just want to be the fastest, they want to be the most skilled, and they want to just go like a million miles an hour around the kit, you know. And you can be a really great drummer, but I think the most important thing as a drummer is to just, I know it sounds boring, but you keep the time. That's the most important thing. I would say a drummer can also sort of make or break a song. I've noticed that even if it's just the way, even if it's a particular sort of rhythm you're playing or a certain symbol you're playing or whatever, a lot of the time I can hear things before I've even thought of them, and that comes with listening to loads of different music. But there's been a few times in rehearsals with Elysian where I've kind of done something unexpected as we're writing a song, and everyone's turned and gone, yeah, that's amazing. There's a bit in a song called Black Smoke, which at the very end I go into like a double time pattern. I go from like a half time fill, do a drum fill, and then go to, and it's a bit like The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, and that was completely just improvised in rehearsal, but then it became a part of the song. So I think you just got to really listen to the song. I like to get the guys to play a song before I've even done any drums, and they'll be like, "Come on, practice with us," and I'm like, "Just play the song first. I need to hear all the melody, I need to hear all the notes, and a lot of it I get in my head first." So yeah, I think, you know, drums are incredibly important, but at the same time, it's definitely a package thing. Do you know what I mean? But I mean that question, I could answer that in a million different ways. To answer in short, yes, they are incredibly important for the band to be coherent, but it's also about the drummer behind the drum kit. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, no, I agree. I think often bassists and drummers are the ones who are like overlooked, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like they're cool, but look at that guitarist and stuff like that. And as like someone who's played drums 3 times, I think, and I'm very bad at drums, I completely kind of go, how the hell do they do drums? Like, how do drums actually work? And with that in mind, what advice would you give to young people who want to pursue drumming? Perfect segue.
He's chuffed with himself now.
Yeah, because I did that on the fly and I didn't mean that.
This is the best podcast you've ever done. God, I mean, that's a difficult question. There's a million and one things. I think for me, my advice to anyone, young drummers who want to start, would be just listen to as much music as you can. Don't just listen to one genre of music or one artist, you know, just because drums is such a people just see a drum kit and they go, oh, it's drums, it's going to be, you know, boom, boom. But there's so many things you can do with a drum kit. So I would say just listen to as much music as you can, you know, from all time periods. I think the best thing that ever happened to me, that developed me, was playing with other people. I was actually a bedroom player for a few years. I just played by myself to records, and as much as that kind of got me better, it's a different story when you start playing in a band, especially on stage, because when you're playing by yourself, if you make a mistake, you can stop the record and go back to the beginning. No one's watching, but you can't do that on stage, and it really forces you to, for lack of a better term, grow up as a musician, because you have to start to compartmentalize what you know you can do and what you're sort of still working on. And too often I see drummers try and do things that they're not quite developed. And it's not to say they won't develop it one day, they probably will, but they're just not ready to do it yet. So I had this kind of weird sort of epiphany in university where I kind of realized what my limits were as a drummer in terms of my ability. And it wasn't saying that I'm a bad drummer, but it was just knowing where where I could go up to. So from that moment on, every time we did a gig, I made sure that I only went to my limits. And as a result of that, my my mistakes dropped off. It was I could do a few gigs and say, I can't really recall one point in that set where I messed up. But that wasn't because I was a great drummer. It was because I knew that everything I was playing, I could play. So I guess it's the old phrase, isn't it? Don't run before you can't walk kind of thing. And then the last bit of advice would be try and practice to a metronome, because timing is so important. And the more you practice to a metronome, the better you'll be at keeping time in a song, really. But yeah, just have fun with it, man, because drums is the most fun instrument. So try and get lessons from a decent teacher if you can. You don't have to do years, but a few lessons I think is good for anyone. And just have fun. That's
Brilliant.
it, really.
That's absolutely brilliant.
So where can people find you online?
I'm a bit of a boring one when it comes to that. I've got Instagram, obviously. Josh Roscoe 34. I've got 2 Instagrams because I do photography as well, so I've got another Instagram link to that one. You can find that on my Instagram page. And I actually don't have Facebook because I think Facebook is I just don't like Facebook. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I try and upload now and again with me drumming stuff quite well. I used to do it a lot in summer when we were not in lockdown. It's kind of slowed down a bit, but I'll upload, videos of me playing or videos of the band. Hopefully next year there'll be a lot more content. And at the moment, I'm in the process of creating like a YouTube channel for the same thing. So once that's up and running, I'll put that on Instagram. That's about it, really.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been honestly really interesting.
It's been a good episode.
Really good.
Fantastic. Well, yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Just